Okay, first of all, I would like to apologize in the beginning that my hand movements are not going to match my speaking voice, or at least this voice. It's because I didn't like how I explained the ZAS in the video, in the actual recording, in the first recording. So I decided to just re-record just the audio, so it's not going to really match, but it's going to be, the video is going to be still there for I don't know, filler reasons. So yeah, so about the ZAS is one of those KZs, rare KZs that really impressed me in how they sound. And it's quite rare actually for me to be this impressed in a KZ. So the general TLDR is it's a well-tuned KZIM with the usual with few of the usual KZ problems, which are incoherencies and bloated bass. If you've noticed, there are actually 4 mistakes that KZ usually make in making hybrid IMs. One of them is okay, the 4 is: number 1, it's horrible at bass presentation. In overall bass quality, it's usually horrible. The second problem is the incoherency with especially in hybrids within the IM. For example, you would notice the dynamic drivers would play very differently than the BA drivers. And the third problem is horrible tonal balance. And the fourth problem is dumbass, piercing, ear bleeding levels of treble peak and treble. Just overall treble elevation just sounds weirdly bright and piercing and sibilant or anything like that. So yeah, but with the ZAS, they actually did 2 things right, which are the overall tonal balance, surprisingly, and the treble peaks. So in my opinion, the ZAS is actually very good for tonal balance purposes, which is very rare for KZ. When I reviewed the CSN in the past, I mentioned that they don't have an ear bleeding amount of treble, but they do still have an overall terrible tonal balance, and that's not the case with the ZAS. It's pretty solid. It's not the best. It's definitely not the best. I would say that there is quite a bit of problems here and there, but it's not going to be extremely excruciatingly terrible like most other KZs or other IMs around with similar signatures of sound presentation as KZs, for example CCAs or TRNs, or for some reason now Tin Hi-Fi. Sadly, I need to put that in that category because holy shit, the Tin T5, oh my god, it's just fucking horrible. So yeah, they a lot of Hi-Fi companies can't tune for shit, and it's been a constant critic in my channel, in our channel actually, that KZ's IMs are not very well tuned, especially even the better KZs like the KZ EDX is not very well tuned in my opinion. It's at least it's not up to my or our standards in this channel. So that's the overall talk, I guess, about their tuning. So for build quality, I think the KZ ZAS build quality is quite good in my opinion. They are quite very well built. they're quite well built. I never have a problem with keys. Oh shit. I never had a problem with KZ's build quality, even from the horrible sounding ZS10 Pros to even the lesser models, the cheaper models like the EDX or the EDX Pros. I really don't have the problem with their build quality. I think their build quality is quite adequate. For cables, they actually ditched the horrible brown cables you can find on the ZS10 Pros or the ZS10 Pros for the better white braided cables. As you can see in the video, it's quite a premium, actually quite a premium feeling cable. It's very good. It's not jank, at least. So it's a good maybe a little bit tangly, but not so much cable that you can work with easily, I'd presume. And with that, you have a few selection of ear tips. I don't know if it's actually in the video. Let me check the video. I don't think it's right there, but you actually have a few selection of ear tips. There are a few ear tips that you can pick. It's a very soft white ear tips. You can see the box right there. So yeah, and with and in front of you, above the KZ ZAS, you have the Moondrop Starfields. I know it's very scuffed. You also have the KZ ZEX, which I actually recorded a video before with the ZX, without the ZX, and I would say that people would want to know how the ZAS compared to the ZX, especially because it's a quite hyped IM, so I decided to put them there. And the Rico or the Usercon SG01, which is, in my opinion, one of the better Chi-Fi V-shaped tuned IMs at under $100. So yeah, it's going to be a good comparison, in my opinion, with the ZAS. So with the bass, with overall tuning, before the bass, we'll get to the overall tuning. The overall tuning here is, I wouldn't really say V-shaped. I think it's more of a neutral with bass boost type of presentation. It's kind of like how I would describe something like the Fear Audio Legacy 4s. I know it's going to be a bit different. It's a bit more W-shaped than the Fear Audio Legacy 4s because it still has the 2K KZ upper mid-range peak, which is basically the character of a KZ IM. And yeah, it's a, I guess, a balanced tuned KZ. It's not very V-shaped. Well, I guess not V-shaped at all, I would say. So because the treble overall treble energy is basically what I would like them to be, which is a very good thing in my opinion. I don't know about the overall harmonics of the harmonic relationships in the treble reed. The harmonics relationships within the treble region is up to my personal preference, but I guess it's okay in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, so with the bass is definitely one of the most disappointing part of this IM. I think the bass is not very resolving because it's not the fastest, it's not the tightest presentation, yet it's quite punchy. It's quite dynamic. It's a bit punchier. It's noticeably punchier than something like the ZX. It somewhat reminds me of the ZS10 Pro bass, which is not very good, but it's punchy. Yeah, it has a good punch to it, but it's slow and bloated and not tight at all, in my opinion. It's not the best part, but the thing is, a lot of people seems to like the bass like this. So if you're looking for a well-tuned KZ with a distinct and noticeable KZ bass, this is basically a no-brainer in my opinion. It's a good set of KZs, and with that. I think the bass reduced at the correct place. I think it doesn't muddies up the mids. It kind of bleeds to the mids, but it has a proper de-elevation, I guess. Proper upper bass, lower mid-range de-elevation. Unlike the one that you can find on the ZX. The ZX seems to have quite a bit of problem at the upper bass and lower mid-range elevation. I think it's a bit too elevated there. I think the overall elevation is very similar to the ones on the aforementioned ZS Pros, or the you can see right here the Rico SG01s like that. I think it's a bit better contoured than the ZX. For the mid-range, it's actually not bad. It's actually pretty good in my opinion. It's quite balanced too. It has a proper. It's not very pulled back in terms of its presentation. I think the mid-range is in a good place. It doesn't sound as withdrawn as something like in the ZX or the Rico SG01s. While in the SG01s and the ZX, you might find the mid-range to be slightly sucked out, I guess. It has that sucked out feeling, but you don't find it here on the ZAS, which is in my opinion a very good thing. Yeah, I think the overall balance between male and female vocals here is also good. You do still have that ornament at the 2K region and slight dipping there, but it's at the 3K region, but it's okay, I guess. It's somewhat of a character of the KZIMs. So yeah, I guess I don't see any problem there too. If you like that type of presentation and you're looking for that type of presentation, I think it's actually a good thing if you do, but it's not actually for me. I think the how Moondrop or how Tanshim or how the Timeless would elevate their upper mid-range, or how they present the upper mid-range is a bit more tasteful for me. But I can see why people might like the presentation of the mid-range of the KZ ZAS, because it's okay, I guess. For the treble region, I think it's well elevated. I think there is a few ornaments up there, but I overall they are not problematic at all. I don't think it will bother anyone looking to purchase this IM, especially if you're really used to the KZ sound, unless you feel that these are lacking in energy, which I wholeheartedly disagree. I think this is good enough. I think in terms of treble quantity, for quality, it's okay. I guess it's quite decent overall. I will get it to I will explain it in the technical performance department. So with the technical performance, I think by the way, the treble here is in my opinion, the treble presentation is better here than the ZEX. I think the ZX is still a bit more peaky. The Rico SG01 is also a bit brighter than the ZAS. I think ZAS has a very good amount of trebles. Has a bit more treble than the Starfields, which people might actually prefer them to be a bit louder than a bit more energy than on the Starfields. And yeah, so getting to the technical performance, I think the detail here is quite solid. I don't think it's better than the what do you call it, the ZX. I don't think this is as good as the SG01s. I don't think this is as good as the Hudson Hot Mirror, obviously. Yeah, it's not as good as TNT2s, but the detail here is fine, I guess. It's a good amount of detail overall. For macro detail, which means like overall detail, bass, mids, and treble, I think it's about as equal as the Moondrop Aria, or actually about equal as the Moondrop Starfields. But yeah, I think this is an overall well detailed IM. It's a decently detailed, so you wouldn't feel the fucking ZAS to be unresolving. You don't have that unresolving feeling, unless you're only focusing on the bass, because the bass, then again, the bass is quite slow and sloppy and muddy, and it's not actually that muddy because it doesn't have that upper bass elevation, but it's bloated, bloomy type of bass, which I don't like, but some people might like them. And yeah, what impressed me in its technical performance, actually the way that they present their soundstage. It's not the widest type of soundstage. I think the sound hardware is a bit wider. I think it's a bit wider than the ZX. By the way, this is not as I've mentioned before that this is not as tight. The overall presentation is not as tight, it's not as concise, not as detailed as the ZX. I think the ZX is a bit better than the ZAS in terms of overall total technical performance. In terms of soundstage width, I think the ZAS is better than the ZEX. It's a bit wider, and it has a very good soundstage depth. I think the depth in the ZAS is quite good. It's quite noticeable, and especially if you listen to a lot of well-recorded Chesky tracks, maybe. And yeah, I guess the overall detail of the overall soundstage depth of the ZAS is quite good, in my opinion. And it's kind of like the 3D type of presentation, which a lot of people like when they listen to multiple BA IMs or IMs with a custom IM-ish fit, like the BGVP DM6 or maybe like the Andromedas. You have that type of depth. It's definitely not the levels of those two IMs, but it's very good nonetheless. So with overall dynamics, I think it's a bit better. It's not compressed sounding as the ZX, but it's good in terms of overall dynamics. Although then again, the bass is not very good type of bass. It's punchy, yeah, it's punchy, but it's not immensely good. I think it's not even as dynamic, it's not as punchy as something as the Rico SG01s. Yeah, it's not as dynamic as the Hassan Hard Mirror. I think it's decent in terms of overall dynamics, but it's not the most impressive. For coherency, it's horrible. You basically know where the bass starts, where the DD starts, and where the BA stops. Yeah, it's just the coherency is in the bin, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's it for the review. Don't forget to watch Jason's video and stay tuned for the ZX review, because the ZX is actually quite good. It's surprisingly good. And surprisingly quite balanced too, I guess. I don't have a lot of faults to say on the ZX, because it's so fucking cheap too. So yeah. Don't forget to watch the next video of the ZX. See you next time. Godspeed.